Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, February 16th, 2021, and welcome to another Tuesday with Thom. Tuesday with Thom, of course, is brought to you by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Best Girl customizes solutions to issues of leadership, access and inclusion, executive coaching, economic development, and communications. Best Girl creates the solutions that fit your needs. I hope wherever you are, the weather is better than it is in many parts of the country. Snow, sleet, rain, ice, power outages. A sprawling storm dumped snow across much of the United States, including areas that rarely get it. More than 6 inches fell on Austin, Texas. That is the South, I think. The most in 55 years. Millions of people are without electricity. The cold shattered long-standing records. Temperatures dropped to 17 degrees in Houston. Do you believe that? Houston, Texas, 17 degrees. And to minus 38 degrees in Hibbing, Minnesota. It is snowing in Houston, and it's going to be raining in Pennsylvania. When does that ever happen? The storm has also disrupted vaccine distribution and closed vaccination sites. So hang in there, be safe, be careful, and if you don't have to go anywhere, then don't. Let's do this month in Black History. Halfway through February, Black History Month, and here's some of February Black History for you guys. In 1688, Quakers of Germantown, Pennsylvania signed the first formal anti-slavery statement in American history. The Quakers did that. In 1869, Nat Love, former slave, decided he would go west and make his fortune as Deadwood Dick, one of the most famous cowboys, black or white, in history. After he drove a herd of cattle to the railhead in Deadwood, Dakota Territory, he entered a rodeo on the 4th of July in 1876, enticed by the $200 prize money. He won the rope, throw, tie, bridle, saddle, and bronco riding contest, and it was at this rodeo that he claims his friends and fans gave him the nickname Deadwood Dick, a reference to a literary character created by Edward Lytton Wheeler. In October of 1877, not 1977, 1877, Love writes that he was captured by a band of Pima Indians while rounding up stray cattle near the Gila River in Arizona. And although he claimed to have received over 14 bullet wounds in his career, Love wrote that his life was spared because the Indians respected his heritage, a large portion of the band themselves being of mixed blood. He almost married the chief's daughter. The band of Native Americans nursed him back to health, wishing to adopt him into his tribe, but eventually, Love writes, he stole a pony to Texas. In 1872, Charlotte Ray graduates from Howard University Law School, becoming the first female African-American lawyer in 1872. And in 1923, American blues singer Bessie Smith, widely renowned during the Jazz Age and nicknamed the Empress of the Blues, was the most popular female blues singer of the 1920s and the 1930s. Her first recording, Downhearted Blues, sold 780,000 copies in just 6 months. And in 1962, Wilt Chamberlain, all 7 feet of him, set an NBA record with 1,363 attempted free throws in just one season. He also is still the only man to score 100 points in an NBA game in a Warriors victory, 169-147 over the New York Knicks on March 2nd, 1962. And in 1965, El Haj Malik Shabazz, El Shabazz, or better known as Malcolm X, is assassinated in New York City. Okay, so we will move on to our roundtable guest today. Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker are here as our roundtable guests, and our G-list guests today are Ellen Killough and Cindi Malinick from the Jule College Smith Museum of Fine Art. But first, our roundtable guest. Barbara Wallace Edwards is from Birmingham, Alabama. She has been with us since the very beginning. Barbara, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Tom. I'm doing fine, but enjoying some snow. We're Birmingham is one of those locations that normally doesn't get snow, but it's snowing this morning, believe it or
Is
not.
it? What are you getting? Just are you getting? Is it an inch? Two
No, it's
inches?
not an
What are you
inch
getting?
yet. It's not an inch yet. I'm not sure exactly what time it started, but it is actually snowing right now. So we're probably got about a half of an inch here at my house. I don't know about other parts of the city, but it's still snowing. So it's
So
coming down pretty heavy.
what's your plan for the snow? What are you going
I
to do
I will
today?
be inside all day pretty much. If I go outside at all, it'll be to the mailbox and back inside. So I'm not planning on getting out, going anywhere, driving anywhere anyway.
So I guess if I ask you what's happening in your world, the snow is happening in your
The
world today,
snow is what's happening. Still riding the high from my birthday this past weekend. I want to thank all of our viewers and all of my family and friends who sent birthday greetings to me. I received over 2,000 phone calls, texts, emails,
Wow.
and social media posts. So it'll take me a while to respond to all of those, but I promise that I will. So
Well,
want to thank you so much.
your birthday was about 3 months, so you get another 3 months to respond back to everybody, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm celebrating a full year, so I figure if I respond anytime this year, it'll be good. But
There
thank you
you
so
go.
much.
You'll be up for another birthday by the time you get
Right.
it all responded
And
to.
I also want to send condolences to one of our Auburn classmate, Rick Rogers, and his family. Rick lost both his mother and his sister within a week's time. So
Wow.
the funeral
Sorry.
services will be held tomorrow in New Jersey. Probably going to have a double service for them. So sending our prayers to the Rogers family.
Very much so. Very much so. Rick's a great guy, and we wish him
Yes,
well. Wish his family
yes, thank
well.
you.
So let's get Michael on here, and we'll come back to you, Barbara. Michael Walker is president of the Walker Agency, a full-service insurance brokerage. He's out of Atlanta, Georgia. Michael, what's happening in your world? You getting snow as well?
Well, we've got a little dusting here and there, but we're going to miss most of the cold weather and the sleet and snow. We're just in that little vacuum where we've got warmer weather coming up. You know, we're getting some rain and what have you, but it's only about 33 degrees here. So we will not get much snow at all.
Okay. So what's
Yeah.
happening with you?
Well, Tom, as always, I try and bring something regarding health and what's going on as far as well-being. And, you know, with the pandemic, it's changed our lives tremendously, especially in the area of healthcare. And dentistry is one area. We are now learning that because of the pandemic and the insecurity with having in-person visits and what have you, the American Dental Association they found that 38% of revenue drop for face-to-face visits due to the pandemic. And what they're doing now is going to use technology to change that. And in is coming teledentistry, where they will use a I see you laughing.
No, I want to hear this.
I don't know how that's
trying
going to
to
work.
think. Okay, how are they going to do dentistry without?
Yeah. Tell me about
This is
that.
what I want to hear.
Well, a company by the name of Smile Direct Club has a platform out in California, and they open up their platform for free to brick and mortar dentistry and allowed them to use it to see patients from a telemedicine standpoint. But still, they got to come in if they have to have something that's essential to their health. So it'll be more forthcoming. It's just in the initial stages, but they're saying that they cannot sustain the practice as it has been. So you had the same questions I had when I was going through the information. I was like, well, how are they going to do that? But I do know I have a friend that's in the dentist business, and he said that he has completely overhauled his office and put in a new air purifier system that sucks air in, out, purifies it, brings it back in. But that costs a lot of money to do that. So now they're looking at doing something called teledentistry. So there'll be more to come on it.
Wow, man, I got a lot of dentist friends, but I hate to say this, but you know, it's kind of bad enough having to go in the first place. And now you got this on top of it. What'd you say, Barbara?
I see. Yeah, going to the dentist is not fun at all. So I can imagine being able to do it, the tele-dentistry.
Well, they're
Yeah.
saying by doing this, it will open it up and make it more accessible to the underserved communities and people that are not able to get to the dentist due to transportation and other costs. So I guess it would be from a standpoint of having like a basic examination, through your
Yeah.
computer. Yeah.
Buddy, when they pull that big needle out and you can see it out of the corner of your eye, it's like, oh, man. You know what? And I get so embarrassed because I just tense up. I get so tense. And they say, well, relax. I said, I can't relax. You got that big thing in your hand pointing at me. I cannot relax. So yesterday, I got my COVID shot, my second shot. And it was pretty cool. You didn't have to get out of the car. You just drove through we drove through the Civic Center parking lot, and they would be there, and then and so the lady comes up to give me my shot, and she's over here. She's gonna give me my shot, and I'm doing like this. And she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I can't look at it."
Look, I can't either.
She said, I can't believe that. I said, "Look, I'm not going to look at it, so just go ahead and do it." And I remember when I was on the football team, and we would go get our pre-season physicals, and we would have to get shots. And I mean, there would be so many guys just crying. Like crying because they wanted to get a shot and didn't want to get the shot. So I'm not the only one that can't look,
No, you're not. I'm in that group too. I can't stand it.
That reminds me
you can do it.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me when I was a kid, my grandparents will always take me to the doctor. I stayed in the doctor's office because I never had measles, mumps, chicken pox, or anything like that. They always got me vaccinated. But they always told me, turn your head to the other side when they're getting ready to give you the shot. So that's what you remind me of. You're still doing it.
I don't know if anybody told me that. I just know I can't look. It's like, okay, hurry up and do it.
Yeah.
So she did it, and I said, "You done?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, now I can look at you." So Michael, I got one just for you.
I know.
Your favorite coach is back in the game.
Well, I'm glad he's not with Auburn. Good for him. And
yes,
I had said that I didn't foresee him ever coming back to the SEC or getting a Power 5 job. So he's with the Group of 5. But I tell you what, it's just amazing to me how certain people can underachieve and they just continue to land on their feet and continue to get paid. But good for him. I'm glad he's at UCF. And that's ironic, and I've been reading some of his comments about how he's saying he's been looking at that job for a long time, and that's one of the best Group of 5 jobs, and they're going to have an explosive offense and all of that stuff. And I'm like, the same old Gus, pumping sunshine, and how are you looking at that job for a long time when you're making $7 million a year at Auburn? That's just a slap in the face. Come on now. And his new salary is $2.3 million, at UCF, because that's all they can afford to pay him. But you've been looking at that job for a long time, but you're making $7 million at Auburn. Give me a break.
He may have been looking at that job because he may have been looking at that job for a long time because he knew his job was probably in jeopardy for a long time. So that kind of explains that.
Okay.
Well, I will say something positive about my friend Gus. He invited me there last summer to speak to the guys, and I appreciate that. I had a good time with the players, and I found him to be a pleasant guy. Hopefully he'll do well. I think UCF, if you're not going to be in a Power 5, is that what it is? I think that's one of the better schools to be at. And one of the things that's really interesting is they're going to play Boise State in their first game. So that'll be interesting to see how I'm sure the media will spin that into something probably a little more than it is the first game of the season. But I'm
Right.
surprised really because I didn't think he would accept a job this fast. But he's a coach,
Well,
and
you know,
coach is coach.
yeah, I
Go
was
ahead,
going to say,
Barbara.
I think he enjoys coaching. I think he really enjoys coaching. So I'm really not surprised, that he got back into it. If he received a decent offer, I thought he would get back. And like I said, Gus is a great guy. I mean, anybody that's ever met him really liked him. And I think he really did a good job building rapport with all of the players and the staff there at Auburn. So, I'm happy for him. I just didn't think he was the best fit for Auburn as far as a coaching position, especially as the years progressed. So,
And it looked like, of course, I mean, they can't come out and say anything bad. And I don't think they would, but it seems like many of the players thought a lot of him, and
right.
that's always a good thing. I did a podcast with the athletic department the other day, and of course, my era was certainly very, very different. And so sometimes you can't have a positive answer, so you just don't answer. And
Right.
that's sort of where I was on some of those questions that were asked of me. Anything else from you, Barbara? Anything else from you, Michael?
I just have to say
No.
one thing is that I heard that a reporter at Gus's press conference asked him if he was ready for the pressure cooker at being at UCF. And the people in Atlanta laughed about it and said, "What are you talking about?
I'm telling you.
You leaving Auburn, which is one of the toughest, if not the toughest job in the country, because you have to play Alabama, Georgia, and LSU year in and year out, and to go to UCF, that's going to be a cakewalk for him. There will not be any pressure compared to what he had at Auburn." So I found that was funny that a reporter from UCF asked him that question about the pressure.
What league do they play in?
It's called the AAC, I think, the American Athletic Conference.
Who do they play in that conference? I don't know.
South Florida is in that conference. Cincinnati's in that conference, I believe.
Okay. Some decent teams for sure.
Yes.
Barbara, you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say the same thing. I wasn't really sure who all was in that particular conference. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how it all works out.
So does he get, in terms of the money and all that stuff, does this money count against the money that Auburn would have owed him, and so they won't owe him as much? Is that how that works?
I'm not really sure. It's a little ambiguous from what I've heard. They're saying that that the money that he was owed was still guaranteed, and
Wow.
he already received half of it because half of it was due within 30 days. So the other half, there's some that's saying that it may be offset by what he is going to be making, and then I've heard that it's really not because of the way the contract was structured. So I'm not really sure on that.
That's interesting.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Lori Wallace said, "Thank God Gus is no longer at Auburn. I wish him well on his new assignment." I think one thing we can say about Gus is he sparked emotions at both ends of the spectrum. And I remember when he first came, and it was a Gus bus, and everybody was excited and so on and so forth. And hopefully he does well there, and hopefully Harsin does well at Auburn.
Yes.
We'll see. Any final comments from you guys? Okay, well, let's move on. Let's move on to our sponsor, Best Girl Inc., and Emily's going to hit that sponsorship for us.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
All right, let's go to the G list now. The G list is where everybody is a star, right? Hollywood has the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom, we've got the G list. So our G list guests today, we have two of them. Cindi Malinick, I hope I pronounced it correctly, Cindi. If not, then you can correct me, please. But she is the director and the chief curator of the Jule Smith Museum of Fine Art at Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama. She's worked for educational institutions, not-for-profit corporations across the country. Her work has garnered awards for the American Alliance of Museums and support for the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Institutes of Museum and Library Services. She holds a BA in education from the College of William and Mary and an MA in public history from the University of San Diego. And our second guest is Ellen Killough. Ellen, if I did not say that correctly, you can correct me as soon as you come on here. But Ellen Killough is an artist and a fly angler. We got to hear about that. And a nonprofit executive. She has 20 years of nonprofit leadership. It ranges from the fashion industry, fashion industry, a fly angler, an artist. Wow. Okay. To national sports and the global movement for inclusion. She, let's see, following September 11th terrorist attack, she decided to follow more personal interests, took her to the Florida Gulf Coast, down here where we are. So, and she worked at organizations in like the Panama City Center for the Arts. She inherited this love of fly angling from her father and her grandfather, and we're going to hear more about that in just a few minutes. And she is the development officer for the Jule Smith Museum. Welcome, ladies.
Hello. Thank you, Thom. Thank you so much. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Very well. Very
well. So, do you have snow in Auburn?
Ice. Got a little ice. Got a little ice.
I remember once we had a big snowstorm in Auburn. It was huge. It was fun. And
how many inches did you get?
Of course, I don't want to tell a story, but it was a lot. Let me just put it that way. It was more than a dusting. And,
okay.
We used to get a couple of times we had it in Birmingham. But thank you guys for being with us this morning. And I just want to ask first question. People always ask me, well, how did you get involved in what you're involved in? And so I'm going to throw that question to you guys. Tell me about the art world and what got you involved. And either one of you can go first.
Well, why don't I start by saying thank you, Thom, for having us. And also, I always look away. I never look when I'm getting this shot. Just
good.
So you know.
I'm glad.
Never.
So I'm not the only one.
No, heck no. And also, this is a tough crowd. I mean, I'm glad I'm not Gus this morning. So.
Well, I don't know. When you go cash that check, you might be happy.
Oh, there's that. That's not the kind of money we see at the museum. But
I hear you.
You know, I've been in this world in different capacities. I mean, as an undergraduate, I worked through college, and I started working in the university museum and special collections. So it's just something I've always loved, and I've had kind of an interesting and circuitous career, but always around culture, material culture, and thinking about and enjoying what art, culture, music, arts can mean to a human being. Michael was talking about health and well-being earlier, how it can spark curiosity. My mother says my first word was why, and I've always asked why, and I'm just curious about the world. And for me, again, the arts is a way to kind of to learn and connect with people. So I ended up at Auburn, though, as you know, because our son graduated in 2013 from Auburn. I'm a South Georgia girl by birth. It may not sound like it, but I am. And in fact, Thom, you may not know, but you were his graduation speaker that summer.
Oh, cool.
And little did I know, a few years later, I would be here. So that's how I landed here, and how I've kind of spent the last couple of decades thinking about art. And Ellen's got a wonderful background as well.
Okay, well, hopefully I said something that he remembers.
Well, I don't know about him, but his father and I will never forget it. And it meant it meant the world to us, actually. It had been an interesting 4.5 years with him, and now he's doing exactly what he should be doing and got a great education at Auburn. In fact, is in Houston right now, probably iced in.
Yeah, and he married a young lady that I am familiar with, that I did a leadership program with, and she was just such a sweetheart, and I hope she's doing well.
She still is. She's our sweetheart, and you may know as well, they're getting ready to have their second baby. Our second grandbaby's on the way, so it's just been, yes, she's a dream and a wonderful part of our family.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Be sure and tell her I said hello.
I will. I hope they're listening. I sent the link or watching. I sent the link, but I don't know.
Okay. So Ellen, hi, and so Ellen, I gotta ask you about this fly fishing thing. So can we talk about that first?
You have to. You have to.
Fly fishing. It's certainly cold enough for the waders and the big floppy hat and all that. I grew up fishing with my dad and my granddad, like I said. But you know what? Neither one of them ever let me do. You know, they would have me set up with my fishing rod, but sometimes they would put down their rod and reel and pick up a fly rod at certain times of the year. And I was raised here in the Deep South. I was born and raised in Montgomery. And this fly rod, it was always so beautiful to watch them cast it. And I said, I want to do that. No. I've set you up over there. You can't play with this. This is very special. It's my bamboo rod. Well, that created the mystique around that. And over time, when I lived in Virginia the first time, in the mountains, small mountain streams, and being connected to some people through working as a fashion designer with Russell Athletic, I got involved in fly fishing, and it has been a lifelong love and a passion that is just as important and heartfelt for me as the fine arts are. Okay.
Let me do this because we got a lot we're going to cover. Let me just ask you guys individually. Because we'll get off on a tangent, and at the end, I'll say, oh man, I didn't ask them about this. I didn't ask. So let me go back to you, Cindi, for a second. Okay. Tell me the one thing you want the audience to get from today.
Oh, only one thing?
Well, no, just
I'll try.
Now we got plenty of time.
I hope that everyone that's watching and anybody that tunes, watches the recording later, learns about the museum at Auburn, learns that there is one, right? Because so many people don't even know that there is one, or if they do, they've never been. But also has their curiosity sparked and has some, starts to think about what arts and the arts mean to them and in their own world, wherever they live right now, and how important it can be in your life.
Now, Ellen, you're on the other end of this. You're on the money end. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Sure. Well, I arrived as development director at the Jule just a few months ago in October. I'm an Auburn grad, but I've been gone a long time. So I'm thrilled to be here. And one of the first things that we saw that we needed was a new van. The old van was used to transport art. But we decided, well, if we have to buy a new van, let's make it a mobile unit. A lot of museums right now over the last year have realized how the absence of a mobile unit has created a real disconnect between their facility, their galleries, their exhibitions, and their audience. So we have Tiger Giving Day coming up. All of the schools and the units like the library, College of Liberal Arts, all of us, College of Engineering, all have a project every year for Tiger Giving Day. And I think this is the 5th year. And we are building a museum in motion. And we invite everyone to come on Tiger Giving Day to help us raise $15,000 to tat it. We're going to tattoo the new museum in motion. Tiger Giving Day.
Tell me this. So in motion, what is that? I mean, I know you got a van, but is art exhibited throughout the van? What are we talking about here?
It's, Michael mentioned earlier, the again, questions and challenges around like your dental health and people having underserved communities and others having trouble with even transportation, getting to the dentist. It's the same at the museum. There are transportation challenges. So there are access challenges. There are schedule challenges. There are all kinds of challenges. And so for us, the pandemic made it very clear, but even before, how do we reach people where they are? Are people afraid to go to the museum? Not everybody was raised, right, to go into a museum. Not everyone may have feel comfortable going into a museum. So this is our way of taking our art and going out, whether it's going to the Kia parking lot so that employees there can come out and see some art, whether it's going to a senior center, whether it's going to the Boys and Girls Club, whether it's going somewhere else on campus. I mean, Thom, you know that the museum is not right in the core of campus. And so if it's not convenient for people sometimes to drop in, so this is a way for us to get outside of our four walls and share our special collection.
Okay. Let's let me get Michael and Barbara on here, and then I want to come back and talk a little bit about 1072. But Michael, Barbara, you got questions for these ladies?
I do have questions for these ladies. Thank you. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
And one of the questions I have is, there's a lot of different artists who have their work that you have displayed there in the museum, but how many Alabama artists have work displayed there?
I was trying to hear your question. How many Alabama artists have displayed at the museum? Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good question. I'm not sure I could give you the exact number, but one of our collecting scopes, one of our focuses is to collect Alabama artists. Obviously, Auburn being a land grant institution, it's incumbent upon us to consider our regional artists. And this past year in 2020, we acquired a G's Ben quilt, as a matter of fact. So it's our work to acquire that kind of art that is representational of all of our populations. So we have a lot of Moe's Tea, if you know Moe's Tea's art. We have I'm just trying to think. I know that Howard Finster was an Alabamian, but we do have a lot of Alabama and or Southeast regional artists to ensure that we're representing our communities.
Okay. One of the things I think you guys have in your literature, and I need, Michael, let me do this video clip and then we'll come back to you. I think the ladies have a video clip they want to show.
I think this is our Tiger Giving Day.
How would you like to paint a Van Gogh? You can on Tiger Giving Day.
After 17 years, the Tired Museum van is ready for a serious upgrade.
Our $15,000 goal supports a student design competition to paint a brand new vehicle and create an innovative touring experience.
Museum in Motion delivers art to people all over the state of Alabama, where they live, work, and play.
I support this project because access to the arts is for everyone.
Creativity unlocks our potential.
Art shapes our growth mindset and our cultural understanding.
I support this project. Won't you?
The Jule wants to take art to the people.
Come along for the ride and give today.
Thank you for your support. War Eagle.
Ellen, since that's your end of the business, you want to talk a little bit about that video?
Sure. First of all, Tiger Giving Day is February the 24th. We believe that the site, it will be open the weekend before, but it's all about Auburn's 24 hours of giving. It's the one day a year where Auburn really devotes all of its fundraising attention to crowdfunding. And this year, the museum's projects have always been very fun. Last year, there was a kids' play gym. that was created in honor of Mondrian, who is a part of our collection. And so this year we are putting art on wheels. We are building the museum in motion and taking art to the people.
Okay, Michael,
we also want to. We'd like to have 300 donors. Usually every year we have somewhere between 150, 200 donors, and the more donors you get, the more successful your project is.
The more money you collect. Michael.
Absolutely. Good morning, ladies, and welcome to the show. I have a couple questions for each of you. Let me start with Cindi. Cindi, the first question is, as chief curator, tell me exactly what does that mean? Because in the business world, I'm used to CEO, chief executive officer. So is that synonymous or what? Tell me about that.
It means I lose sleep, when we're hanging 400-year-old Bernini art on the walls the week before the museum exhibit opens. That's what it means. So, a director / chief curator, you're an arts administrator, and you need to understand a lot about a lot of things and a little about some things. So I understand the curatorial world. I've designed exhibits, I've installed exhibits, but I don't have time to do that all the time, right? Because I'm also managing a staff and budgets and all of that. But it's my job to ensure that our exhibitions reflect our mission and align with Auburn University. And so I have oversight over not only administrative, making sure budget, staff, all of that is working, but that our exhibitions and the engagement that go along with them make sense and are able to offer connections to our communities.
Okay. Now, the follow-up question is that in one of your previous roles, and I want to get this right, so I had to put my glasses on, it said that president of the historic sites at the National Trust for Historic Preservation, where you supported and managed more than 60,000 art and historical objects, 4,000 acres, 200 plus roof structures. How did you do that?
Again, on no sleep. So the National Trust for Historic Preservation is a private nonprofit that was chartered by Congress in the 1950s. And they have museums and historic sites across the country. And so I was the deputy and chief of staff to the senior vice president, and we had to support and manage all of those sites across the country. So all of those museums and sites had their own directors, their own collections. Some people have said that those collections are second only to the Smithsonian. Every place from, again, California to South Carolina and Massachusetts and San Antonio and everywhere in between. So I was on the road a lot, meeting with staffs, ensuring that they were supported, ensuring the same thing that I do now, that their work aligned with their communities and aligned with the mission and role of the National Trust. So it was a fascinating job. I loved it. I was there for more than a dozen years, and I learned so much and made lots of good friends and colleagues across the country. And the National Trust does wonderful work. They, like all cultural institutions, are really kind of trying to move through this time and well before the pandemic as they thought about relevance. There's a lot to get into with that, but I hope that answers your question quickly, briefly.
It does. Ellen, Thom mentioned the fly fishing. And since it's a hobby of yours and a love of yours, have you ever been in a fly fishing tournament? Do they have those?
Yes, I have fished in several fly fishing tournaments with Project Healing Waters Fly Fishing, an international organization that I led that supports veterans' health and rehabilitation through adaptive sports. A partner and I won first place at the Two Fly Challenge on the Rose River in Virginia, which was Project Healing Waters home waters. And you know what? One of the best memories for me was that same fly fishing partner and I took first place in a tournament for Casting for Recovery, which is also adaptive sports that supports physical and emotional rehabilitation for women with breast cancer.
Wow. Okay. Great. Fantastic.
It was
The
awesome.
the follow up is I know you've been in the fashion industry as well.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about fashions for disabilities.
Oh,
I saw
sure.
something. Yeah.
Sure.
How about? Tell me about that.
Sure. The Runway of Dreams Foundation is a not-for-profit organization that, and the only mission of its kind, really, with a mission of bringing fashion to people with disabilities. It is a very inclusive idea and a fairly new idea. You know, why in the world would we have really moved this far and evolved this much as human beings, always thinking that that people with disabilities would not care about fashion, Valentino, all as much as the rest of us do, as much as people without disabilities. So, and there's such a connection to Auburn with this too, because the Runway of Dreams Foundation, I was their program director prior to coming to the Jule. And there are college clubs all over the country, and these college clubs get involved with their wheelchair basketball teams, and they get involved with the fashion departments, and they have fashion shows featuring people with disabilities wearing adaptive fashion. And that's a brand new market with a lot of potential for young fashion designers too. So I hope to speak to the fashion department and the fashion merchandising department about having a club at Auburn to make Auburn more inclusive.
Cool. Great.
Barbara, before I come back to you, let me ask this question. There are 2,500 objects, the museum stewards, and there are 195 works by women and 78 works by people of color. Is this a focus for you guys to raise those numbers? And how are you going about it?
Thom, thank you. Thom, thank you for that question. It wasn't long after I arrived that I asked that question because I wanted to know. And we didn't have that data before. Well, that's an offline conversation, right? But the answer.
That's why I'm grinning.
Yeah, I know you are, and I know that's why you're grinning. So let me start out also and frame this by saying that the university collection on so many levels is no different from most collections across the country, whether you're the Whitney or the Met or your Auburn or some other museum. So once I got the numbers and we could quantify it in all transparency, we've been sharing these numbers. And how do you correct it? You start by adding art by people of color, women of color. It's just not that hard. It's there. It's incredible, and it's our job. It's incumbent upon us to ensure that visitors feel welcome and can see themselves reflected in all spaces. And for sure, spaces that are meant for places of respite, discovery, healing, cultural connection. And so it's something that I've always cared about. And so we just started thinking, okay, let's start to identify who are we missing? Who do we want to collect? Again, 195 pieces by women, 78 by people of color. So we've already added, in this last year, we focused on adding art by women of color, some that are deceased, others that are current and are exhibiting right now across the country. And it's just been a joy and a pleasure. And I'm excited to do more. I'm excited what it means for Auburn as they think about their own kind of racial reckoning. As you well know, the president has a task force thinking about these things, and the museum can play a critical role in helping advance those conversations and that progress.
You were talking earlier about maybe getting people from Montgomery to come to the museum, or Birmingham, or Atlanta. And I think one of the things that happened for me is when I was in elementary school, we would go to the museum.
I was
The
wondering.
school would go to the museum, and so that's how I became familiar. Not that I'm any kind of an expert or anything, but that's how I became familiar with art and things that were appreciated in museums. And is that something that happens from the surrounding schools, surrounding communities in Auburn, the Lochapoka and the other communities out there?
We have support from the city of Auburn to bring seventh graders every year. But I mean, exposure to the cultural arts. There's lots of data and statistics about the younger, just like, if you get to learn to play the piano when you're 3 and all those synapses are connecting and what it means to you going forward. Same thing with visual arts, experiencing performing arts. The younger you get to see that and experience it and have your own sense of wonder or curiosity, it can stay with you. And for sure, it's interesting, right? And I'm sorry, Ellen, I want you to jump in, but we're, as a university museum, first and foremost, our mission is to support and be, centered within the intellectual life of the university. That's why we were founded. We're on the campus. But because of Auburn's role in the region and its land grant legacy, we have a broader community that's incumbent upon us to work to connect. And so, yes, it's, school buses used to come up, not this past year, but we've done a lot of virtual, as you can imagine. Everybody's been doing it, tired of it, but we've done a lot of virtual connecting too.
Okay. Barbara? Barbara, you got anything for us?
Well, I do have another question for Cindi. Cindi, tell us a little bit about the museum itself. I had the privilege of actually visiting the museum on many occasions and actually had an opportunity to come there for even lunch at the cafe. It's still in existence. What are your hours of operation? What's the admission charge? Tell our viewers a little about what all the museum offers.
Sure. Well, admission is free. It has been free for many years. So as part of the university, we're supported by the state of Alabama, but it's why Ellen and I think about money all the time too, because of capacity. So we're constantly thinking about that, but admission is always free. We're open Tuesdays through Sundays, and we reopened after we had to close like everyone else did in March. We reopened in August of 2020. There are times when we're down as we're installing new exhibitions, but we're open Tuesdays through Sundays. All of that's on the website. Cafe is closed right now because it's a very small cafe anyway, but because of COVID. We have a retail shop that's online, and all of our exhibitions are online as well. You can get a little glimpse into those if you're not able to get to the museum. But we're right on College as you're heading into the university, across the street from the new beautiful Performing Arts Center.
I've got a question for you.
Thank you. It's a welcome.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
to see the building when you're coming in.
Okay.
I was just say I love that seeing the museum as you come into Auburn. I was so proud in 2003 when it opened, and driving is like that's the official welcome to campus. So it's a beautiful, beautiful building.
I love hearing that.
Speaking of, how do you? Okay, so you have people who haven't been, and how do you make them feel welcome? Because oftentimes, if you haven't been to something and you go into something, and unless somebody rushes up to you and hugs you and says, "Oh, we're so glad to have you here," how do you feel welcome if you're out of your space? Exactly. And I think a lot of people go into museums and they're out of their everyday space.
I agree with that. Ellen, you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, one thing that I've enjoyed being involved in from the curatorial standpoint since arriving is that is that when the museum creates the labels, the text that you read next to a painting or, next to a sculpture, those are other, aside from, and in addition to virtual tours, apps that people can listen to something, they can walk up to a painting and listen to something about the painting that speaks to them in a language that they are comfortable with. That was the beginning, I believe, with museums in general, not just ours, and virtual tours prior to going that can allow them to feel more comfortable. But in going to a museum for the first time, I think it's very important for us to create a dialogue that lets someone know that they don't have to bring an education to the experience. They don't have to bring a master's degree or a PhD or any level of education to enjoy the experience. And as long as we speak in those text labels to everyone and relate those paintings and sculptures and all of our collections to something that has to do with everyone to the extent we can, therein lies the level of comfort.
Okay. Thom, it's a good question as well. Ellen's right. I mean, I've thought a lot and worked hard the last couple of years with the team at the museum to kind of break down some barriers and some silos so that only curatorial were the only ones that could ever look at the labels because they know of course they're the experts in that, but there is all these different perspectives because we do want folks to feel like, oh, I can understand this. It's not a mystery. Art is not a mystery, even though it may feel that way. But I think also just physically, as beautiful as the building is, even walking in the door, we mainly have students that greet people when they come in. There is a big desk that we don't use right now because of COVID, and we've got a smaller kind of space where our students work. So there are even just there's the physical nature of parking, walking in, all of those things that may feel off-putting. And so we work hard with banners and flower, things to just kind of soften the area and again, try to offer a welcoming experience. It takes time. It can take time.
And one more thing too, is we think about doing as many outdoor events as we can, because it reduces the chance of spreading viruses, etc. But people love to watch people make art. That is another element and another event experience. People watching art happen. People love that. It's breaking down that barrier. Looking at a painting is wonderful. Watching someone paint one is a very different and intimate experience.
Okay. And you have the Gooch Center right across the street from you now. And so you sort of have an arts part of campus, so to speak, that hopefully will draw more people to that area. Michael, Barbara, you guys got another question?
Sure. I want to ask Ellen, I understand that you look at the finances and what have you. What kind of budget do you have there at the museum? I would think it's kind of hefty. There's a lot of overhead there, right?
Well, sure. We get a great deal of our support from Auburn University, and we're very thankful for that. As best I can tell in my short time, the museum floats between a $2.5 and $3 million budget every year. And the museum is responsible for raising about half of that. And there are needs, and there are both needs and desires and things that we want to do and try to cost a lot. So when I think about the money that we need to raise, I think about, we think about individuals, those that are already donors, bringing new donors, but also bringing in corporate donors. And we're starting to talk about and really develop a sponsorship or a partnership effort that will allow us to align with organizations who have goals that align with ours, that find real opportunity in aligning themselves with the Jule.
Okay, fantastic.
Good.
Yeah.
Barbara, you there?
Yes, I'm here. I was going to ask about your personal art collection. Do you have a personal collection? If so, is it a certain artist that you're your favorite and that you love?
Was that for me or for Cindi?
It goes for you.
I was actually
It was,
but
if that
either one of
question
you
is
ladies
for me,
can
it's
answer
a little
that.
bit of garbled, but well, being from Montgomery, Alabama, I love Mose Tolliver. I was fortunate enough while I was in college to actually go to his home in downtown Montgomery and sit with him as he painted. And so I collect Mose's work, and I have other collections as well. You can see behind me. I love abstract works, and I love works by several different women. This is Helga Maria Ballheimer behind me. She's an artist of mine, actually in Panama City, Florida. She lives not far from you, Thom. And if you're interested, if you'd like that, I can introduce you and Joyce to her sometime. But thank you for the question.
Sure. Go. You gonna say something else, Barb?
No.
Okay. Let me just ask you, how, in terms of contemporary things, in terms of things that are going on in the world, and I'm specifically going to reference Black Lives Matter, because it isn't just about the police, it's about the infrastructure of our society, I think, is the way I would put it. So is Black Lives Matter in the art world as well?
Oh, yeah. But for the very reason that you stated, right? It's the systemic racism, and I'm not saying anything that hasn't been written about or explored before, but the systemic racism embodied in the art world is real. And it starts from left to right, top to bottom, advisory boards, staff, art, right? It's reflected in the art like we just talked about. And so there's a power structure, and I'm well aware of my privilege and eager to help, eager to be a part of making a difference and being part of the change to the extent that I can. And for me, the way we do that in part is, again, thinking about a collection, how it offers potential connections for everyone. We have an amazing black and white image, a photograph by Gordon Parks, who I'm sure you all know is a very important African American artist and filmmaker and all those things.
He's on my wall. He's on my wall in my office.
I'm jealous. That's good, And after everything that was happening in June, I took some time before the museum said anything, but we shared our Gordon Parks image in our collection, and it was a photograph when he was working for Life magazine and photographing, I think, in the Mobile area in the 1950s, and it's a really kind of profound image of a young African American girl and a woman. I don't know if it's her mother and sister, big sister, and they're both one's peering into a window, the little girl, and the woman is drinking out of a water fountain that's labeled colored. And, it raises all kinds of questions. They're beautifully dressed. I don't know if it's Sunday, I don't know what's going on. And there's all this kind of like happy advertising in the window. There's ice cream. It looks like a little 5 and dime or something. And so you just have to wonder all kinds of things. Like, how did that woman feel that day as she was drinking out of that fountain? What did the little girl think? What became of their lives? I mean, it's just one example of how a piece of art, a photograph, can open up a conversation. And this is not going to get fixed overnight, but I believe with every bone in my body that the arts can help. But there's got to be this kind of addressing of the systemic issues within the art world as well. And it's incumbent upon all of us to be cognizant of that and to work toward change. And I think, again, Auburn has an incredible opportunity, given its location near Montgomery and Selma and Birmingham. It's got, leverage this. Let's leverage this moment. Let's leverage our collection. Let's leverage our passion for improving and changing, and be a leader. We can be.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that you've got a G's Bend quilt. I was fortunate enough to go to, I think it was Selma, and give a talk. And as a gift, they gave me a framed with patches from the G's Bend, from the G's Bend ladies that we have framed in the house, along with some of the other art. So yeah, it was wonderful. So let me just wrap this up. Barbara, Michael, you got anything quickly you want to add before we leave?
No, I just want to say thank you guys for visiting with us, and I look forward to coming in to visit the museum as soon as it's open.
Oh, again. Good. Please do. We'd love to see you.
Okay. Absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you. I look forward to coming back.
Thank you. Nice to be with all of you this morning.
Okay. Okay. So after we talk about Black history or history in general, remember, we get to write our own history. Every one of us gets to write our own history. Every moment we're here, we have the chance, the opportunity to write our history. History is made up of individual moments. Today is one of those moments, one of your moments. Do something worthwhile. I'm going to close out with this. Outlive your enemies. Trust your friends. Go to work every day and do your best, no matter how trivial or odious the task. Choose your battles. Listen to life's music. Choose your words and make them sing. So I want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. I want to thank Michael and Barbara. I want to thank our G-list guests, Helen Killough and Cindi Malinick, for bringing us some information that we probably need, that we do need, and that we didn't have. So thank you very much. That's our show. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl. If you're interested in have your business to be a sponsor of the show, get in touch with us at Thom at Best Girl. I want to thank Emily Hedrick, the communicator, our producer. Thanks Sean Jones, the organizer. It's a wrap. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.